from people who care. This is Dr. Glenn Jarrett, and I would like to take this moment to honor the quality and commitment of our Missoula Bone and Joint staff. We all share a common goal of providing the best orthopedic care to improve the lives of our patients. My partners and I appreciate all the efforts from everyone at Missoula Bone and Joint who worked so hard to accomplish this goal. We know we are so fortunate to have the best team. Best wishes for a healthy and happy new year to our employees, our patients, and their families.
Hockey and Lacrosse Wolf is celebrating MLK Junior Weekend with a massive store-wide sale January 17th through the 20th. All of last year's items will be on sale. That includes all sticks, gloves, helmets, shoulder pads, shin pads, elbow pads, pants, and even skates. They will be massively on discount. It's MLK Junior Weekend sale at Hockey and Lacrosse Wolf, happening Friday, January 17th through Monday, January 20th. The best hockey store at the best prices at Hockey and Lacrosse Wolf on Brooks next to Sign Pro.
Dr. Hardy from NWPSA is here with me. Dr. Hardy, it seems like every day there is some new therapy or procedure for folks looking to improve their confidence and appearance. What is your process for choosing what you will offer your patients?
One of the most important things to remember about plastic surgery and skin therapy is that the latest and the greatest isn't always that great. At Northwest Plastic Surgery Associates, we prefer to let science and safety do the speaking, so we educate ourselves on every new technology and procedure. We only bring in what we feel is safe and effective to get the best results for our patients.
Well, that's what it's all about. How does a patient go about choosing what is right for their needs?
Each patient will have an extensive consultation where we discuss their short and long-term goals. Patients can feel secure in knowing that we have the experience to guide them to the treatments that'll be the most effective in helping them reach these goals in a safe and confidential environment.
Contact Northwest Plastic Surgery Associates, nwpsa.com, or call 728-3811.
Here's to you, the intrepid explorers, driven doers, and off-road adrenaline addicts. Thanks for making Polaris America's best-selling off-road brand. It's time to celebrate with great deals on the world's biggest and best off-road lineup. Live life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or elevate your adventure in a versatile Polaris General. Now's the time to find your perfect ride. With financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months and savings up to $3,500 during the Polaris New Year's sales event at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. The mountains are full of snow, and Kurtz has all the best machines, apparel, and accessories to take full advantage of the season. Online at KurtzPolaris.com, the most fun you can have in snow. Kurtz Polaris, winter awaits. Offers valid in U.S. through 2/29/20 on new 2016 through 2020 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
When the mountains are calling, a Floco Mocha is just what you need to hit the road. Florence Coffee serves an exclusive, rich, all-natural chocolate blend for a mocha like no other. Top it off with real whipped cream, and you're set for whatever your day has in store. Get your Floco Mocha at any of our locations throughout western Montana and go to FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
The best flavor under the big sky, Florence Coffee Company.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Tutela Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, sports talk from Montana for Montana. Live from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Coulter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. Dante Olson, finalist for the Buck Buchanan Award, joins us today. And so do a whole bunch of other people, including Mike Dugar, to talk to us about the divisional round of the NFL playoff. Seahawks at Packers. I did wear the hat for the people today. Yes, I did. Good afternoon. Happy Friday to you. It is Tutel Nuanez. Thanks for being along with us on ESPN Radio and across the state on SWX Montana Television. We are happy to be with you wherever you are. Thanks for letting us hang out for a little while on a very fine Friday. If you would like to call, 329-1899 is the phone number. All guests join us via the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. You can also listen live on the stream. The stream available all the time. It is there. Thanks to the Opportunity Bank. Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. It is, by the way, at our website, 1029ESPN.com. Click on the Listen Live tab, and you will listen live. Let's take a look at what we got in the show today. Huge show. Bunch of people here today as we got, what is, I think, the biggest football weekend of the year that we are heading into right now, and it makes me oh so very happy. First of all, up here very shortly, we're going to be joined by Dante Olson, obviously a finalist for the Buck Buchanan Award for the second year in a row. He is in Frisco, Texas, getting ready for the banquet, which is coming this evening. We'll find out tonight, how this shakes out, first, second, and third, but certainly an honor and a big deal to be there, and to be there twice is major. So the Montana Grizzly linebacker will join us here in just a little bit. We also will talk about the demolition. Wow, what a deal that was the Montana Grizzlies, a 90-63 win over Eastern Washington last night. Did not see that coming. Yesterday. But Travis DeCuire seemed to. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. By the way, Montana State, also a winner, squeaked out a win, but did get a win nonetheless on the road in Moscow over Idaho. The Lady Grizz, big winners over Eastern Washington. Montana State women suffering their first defeat of the conference season in Bozeman against the Idaho Vandals. So we'll get into that. We also will have Gracie Carter. She's from Belgrade. She's a junior there. She's our Mattress Firm Student of the Week. We will talk to her. In the next hour, top of the hour, Mike Dugar, 12 for the 12s. A little bit longer than 12 today because it is divisional weekend. The Seattle Seahawks on the road at Lambeau Field on Sunday evening. So we will talk to Mike Dugar, covers the Seahawks for The Athletic, about that. And also about 5:30, how about Sam Herder joining us from Hero Sports? It is an FCS National Championship game tomorrow, 10 a.m., ABC Television, NDSU, and James Madison University going to play for a national championship. And how about this? James Madison favored in this game. Favored. How about that? So we'll talk to him about that. Sam Herder, his 7th national championship game that he's covering down there in Frisco. So this is very cool. So there you go. That is our show. It is brought to us by Shine Auto Detailing. Go online right now. Get your car detailed. Sign up, scheduled for Shine Auto. Tell them that Coulter and I sent you on down there. They'll give you a free $20 windshield restoration. Make your driving safer. Winter windshield treatment. All winter long at shineautodetailing.net. Coulter, how are you, man? Great to see you.
Doing great. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm outstanding. This is the greatest weekend ever, man. You got 10 a.m. tomorrow, an FCS National Championship game, backed up by 2 divisional round playoff games, 2 more on Sunday, and then, the FBS National Championship on Monday, which we will be talking a lot about on Monday. We haven't really touched on that all that much. We will have, by the way, the Seahawks game and that national championship game right here on ESPN Radio for you. So if you're looking for those, you're out and about, cruising around doing your thing, we have you covered on both of those fronts the next couple of days and through this long football weekend. But Coulter, we're going to get to Dante Olson here in just about 60 seconds. He's coming to us from Frisco, Texas, so we appreciate that. But how pumped are you about this weekend? Does this do this for you? It's doing it for me right now. No,
I try to ignite myself. I love all sports equally. Like until they're happening, I only can get. I don't know, man. I feel like the art of anticipation is an art of cultivating a feeling of being let down. If you expect nothing, then everything is great.
No, here's the thing, and there's an extent to which I agree with you. The anticipation is the joyfulness of it. The game is fun, but often you're right. The game doesn't live up to the anticipation. But if you don't have the anticipation, you're not having fun now, and I am. I'm having a grand time. You know one reason my spirits are lifted? Florence Coffee Company. Went on down to the Flow Coco, got myself a iced latte. I know it's a little chilly outside, but I felt like you got an iced coffee too over there, right?
Yeah, I did.
Straight iced coffee?
Sorry, I just realized that I left it in my office.
Unbelievable.
I was slugging some before the show and left it in the office, but I'll get it at the break. I can't wait.
It's a Friday
boys and girls, it's a huge football weekend. You got to stay up late tonight and prep a bunch of food. I know I am going to be. You got to get yourself ready, but you can sleep in tomorrow at least until about 9:30. You're going to be fine, right? Get up, go right to the game. Get yourself a Florence Coffee Company right now. It's the perfect day for a little chilly out there. You're cruising around the state of Montana. Florence Coffee Company takes us through a Florence Coffee Company coffee break every Friday afternoon. It's your turn. Stop in there, get yourself caffeinated, or don't. Just get some tea, whatever you need, but they're going to keep you happy, make your weekend start off on the right foot with the Florence Coffee Company.
Well, we go now to the Rangitsch Brothers RV phone line, and we welcome in one of the great Grizz linebackers of all time, a guy who's up for yet another Buck Buchanan Award tonight in Frisco, Texas. Dante Olson joining us. Dante, how are you, my man? Thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Well, we're doing great. We're certainly expect that you are doing well. It's a Friday on the eve of the national championship game of the FCS level, which means it is also awards night nationally. You are in Frisco, Texas, as a finalist for the second year in a row for the Buck Buchanan Award as the best defender at the FCS level. You were in this position last year. What's it been like this year, though, to kind of go back? It's so rare to get a second shot at something like that, to go back and be in this spot again, and how are you sort of taking this now that you've gotten to do it once before?
You know, it's exciting. It's a great deal that they put on down here. It's a great thing to be a part of, and you know, it's just humbling to be recognized at this level. You know, win or lose, top three is pretty special, and you know, it's great recognition for the whole Montana team as a unit and what we were able to accomplish this year.
Is there any differences you notice going back for a second time?
I don't know. I guess it's that's a tough question. It's I guess I know what to expect a little more than I did last year, so it's not as nerve-wracking. But other than that, it's just an all-around great experience.
How different has it been since you graduated and finished, you guys finished your season, to now just be sort of autonomous and all about football all the time? I know you've been working out, preparing for, the draft and getting yourself as ready as you can. But how different has that been from what a normal off season has been just between, playing seasons?
Obviously our season ended sooner than I wanted it to, but now it was a great year, great ride, and now that I'm done, it's awesome to feel graduated and, not have to go back to school and go back to the grind of that. And, it's different. I'm definitely going to miss the team and the coaches and, the brotherly bond, but I'm really looking forward to this next chapter and see what God has in store for me. And, it's different to just be 100% focused on, yourself and your body and trying to get ready for the next level.
When chapter fully truly closes, it's always an interesting experience, because I'm sure when you guys were riding back on the bus from Weber State, or maybe, I don't know if you took a plane or whatever, but traveling back and you're graduating the next day, I know you and then Cy Sermon and Dalton Sneed, a bunch of other guys graduated that next day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's disappointing to lose that game at Weber State, but also then probably all the great memories flood back too. So when you were, after the game, when you were kind of just letting it all sink in that your time as a Grizz was really over, what sort of things came to your mind?
It was definitely disappointing. Looking back now, it's in the locker room, giving everybody hugs and tears and stuff like that. But, Coach Alco said something I'll never forget. Once you're a Grizz, you're always a Grizz. So, I always have a home there, and that's something that I'm forever grateful for. But definitely all the memories, kind of flooded back through, and everything that we've been through, whether it's a senior class and, a couple different coaching changes, and, just the day in and day out, and, the team going through the grind of winter conduct.
Finalist for the Buck Buchanan Award, after having collected basically every award that human beings give out to football players over the course of this offseason. I got to ask you about going to the Sugar Bowl. You were part of the Good Hands team, which takes in a whole bunch of stuff, but, is a lot about community service and giving back and all the stuff that you've done around, Missoula, Montana in general. But what was that like to be there at that game? And, you're with a bunch of other other players, Tim Tebow among others as well, and just being there for that?
That was an incredible experience, and that's something that I'll never forget. Meeting all the different players that were part of the team, meeting obviously Tim Tebow and Usher, and I got to sit down with Tim Tebow and have about a 45-minute conversation with him, during the Sugar Bowl, and it's like kind of surreal because that's a hero growing up of mine, and then being able to have a genuine conversation was pretty cool. And it's go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say it's one of those things that you give back to expect anything in return, but it's definitely very cool to have that recognition and being able to be a part of that team is something that I'll never forget.
You mentioned the fact that this is an individual award that you're up for, but that it is a team award too. I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to the guys and your guys' defense. I think that just analyzing the scheme you guys ran the last 2 years, you are certainly an outstanding individual player, but so much of everything that happens around you is so key to putting you in positions to make plays, too. So talk about that part, just the way that your teammates and everybody that played around you kind of put you in this position to represent Montana on a national stage tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a team award. There's no individual, you can't win games with just one player on the football field, so everybody on the team deserves this recognition, and I couldn't, be more grateful for the different players that I played alongside. It starts up front with the D line, and they're trying to cause chaos and mayhem to the O line, and they do a great job, starting with Jesse up front, and he's one of my best friends, and he's done an awesome job these last couple of years, and then everybody's got to do their part. The linebacker next to me, it was mostly Jace this year, and Jace and Bus last year. We all got to work together. It's kind of like pulling the rope. The ball goes one way, we got to go the same way, and it ends in the back end. To get pressure on the quarterback, you got to have good coverage to to be able to take risks. The guys in the back end have to be able to make the plays, and that's run by Josh and Big Gav and Robbie and both corners, Justin and D Nash, and everybody just gotta do their job to be able to make for an individual to make a play. Everybody has to do their job, whether it's Ryder or Pat up front, and Jesse and Deming, Joe, whoever it may be. Everybody's got to do their job. You got to count on everybody, and it was definitely an awesome experience the last couple of years.
Dante Olson joining us. He's in Frisco, Texas, getting ready for the banquet tonight and as a finalist for the Buck Buchanan Award. And Dante, I know you're getting ready for the East-West Shrine game, and that's a big deal to play in that and basically get your first, spotlight look in front of a whole bunch of scouts and being coached up by some guys and all that kind of stuff. But also, what's the process like right now? You got your pro day coming up. When do you find out? How do people find out if they've gotten a combine invite? When does that kind of stuff all transpire, and how do you go through this sort of time where there are still some unknowns out there?
Yeah, so I think the list comes out in February, early February, because the combine is in late February, I believe. So just the process of playing in the East-West Shrine game, which, it'll be a great experience. I'm going to meet a lot of guys and play against a lot of great talent and be coached by, some great coaches in front of a lot of, NFL scouts and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to that opportunity. And then, whether it's a combine or pro day, I'm really excited to, get out there and show everybody what I got.
When your pro day comes along, or the combine, what's your 40 going to be, Dante? What are we doing here? We shooting 4.3, 4.2, maybe?
Oh, wow.
I'm just playing.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Wouldn't that be awesome for any of us? Yes, it would.
Yeah.
But when it comes, let me ask you this though: do you think there's an undue amount of not pressure but focus put on that kind of stuff, or do you think it's reasonable?
To be able to play at the next level, you got to be fast, you got to be strong, and when I say fast, you got to be extremely fast. So, scouts look into that stuff, and whether they look into it too much or not, that's not up to me. So I just got to go out there and run as fast as I possibly can.
I remember that towards the end of the season, the wide receivers for Montana always stay on the field and catch balls out of the jug machine, do a little extra work. And it was funny because you started doing that at the end of the year, catching balls with those guys. And I don't remember if it was Samari or Sammy asked you, Dante, what are you going to run? You said, oh, man, I'm running 4.2. I'm way faster than you.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, how do you transition your mindset out of being such a close-knit group with a bunch of guys that are around your age, then preparing to go to what is maybe the most competitive business world in America in the NFL?
It's obviously something that I've never been a part of in the NFL, so everything is going to be a new experience, and, just got to trust God and take it day by day, starting with today and then worrying about tomorrow when tomorrow comes around. But, like I said before, University of Montana and everybody that I met there, coaching staff to the players, the older guys that graduated, and then the younger guys that came up below me. It's that group right there are people that I'll never forget and stay in touch with for the rest of my life. So it's right around that time, about 5 years ago, where I signed my life away, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Dante, one of the great ironies of playing football is you don't really get to watch football as a fan, right, or whatever. And so now tomorrow, I know it's a game, obviously that you would have loved to have played in, but it is still a football game. It's a national championship. What do you think this game's going to be like tomorrow? Are you excited to just, sit there and take in a football game and watch these guys go?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited. There's going to be a lot of talent there. Obviously, if I wish that, we could ultimately be playing in the game and I didn't have to be a spectator. But, I love football. I've obviously been around it since, the day I was born. But so it'll be fun. It'll be a good experience to get down there and, watch a couple of better teams in the FCS and see what happens.
Well, Dante, we certainly wish you all the best tonight. Congratulations again on all the awards, all the All-Americans and stuff, and to be in the banquet, again for a second time is a pretty big deal. So congratulations to you on that. Love watching you play, and the best as you go through this process here leading up to the draft. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dante. Dante Olson, Grizz linebacker, and a Buck Buchanan Award finalist. We'll find that out tonight. We will not be on the air when that announcement officially is made, so we will talk about that on Monday as it comes through, but you can follow along at Skyline Sports MT, at Gus Tutel. We'll make sure and at 102.9 ESPN to get that out to you as it happens and as we're made aware of it. So there you go. But very good of him to join us. Always enjoy catching up with Dante, and it is such a dichotomy to watch him play and to talk to him and to be with him. We've been with him a number of different places, times, and in person, he's just the most affable and meek is, not a word that you use very often, but it is sort of true about him in person and just kind of who he is. And then on the field is just, it's a switch flip, and it's awesome, man. It's great to watch. So excited for him, and certainly wish him the best tonight.
He encompasses so much of what we know about him and what he believes in. And sometimes the crossing of faith and sports is exploited, and sometimes it's a fallacy, and sometimes it's made too much of. But other times it's completely authentic. And Dante Olson is so many guys claim to be humble. He doesn't claim to be anything. That's why he's actually authentically humble.
Right.
And
right.
But I think that just the diligence that he lives his life with is why he's had so much success. Once upon a time, he was a small school linebacker from Oregon in a private school. And I was looking, he posted a picture of himself when he was a senior in high school and said, "I can't believe I'm where I'm at today." And he was just a skinny little kid.
Yep.
And now he's a grown man, and it's a good story because I think a lot of times the guys that are surefire NFL prospects out of this level of football, you got to be so unbelievably gifted straight out the gates, like a guy like Jabril Cox, or you got to just be just a savage like Patrick Onwuasor was from Portland State, or guys that get drafted from this level. The mentality that you have to have, and Olsen is neither one of those, but he still has as good of a shot, and he's definitely different than a lot of guys in his makeup. But I think it proves that you don't necessarily have to be the insane Vontaze Burfict type, and you don't have to be the 6'3", 240-pound guy who runs a 4.3 like Jabril Cox.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a good point. It's just it takes all types, and we will follow along with all of you eagerly to see kind of the path that it takes here for Dante Olsen, beginning or continuing, I guess I should say. Tonight, we'll take a quick break. Last night, what a night in the Big Sky Conference in basketball. The Montana men's team absolutely dominant in a game on the road at what was supposed to be the other best team, perhaps the best team in the Big Sky Conference. We'll discuss that and talk about it right after this. Hey, it's the new year. With all the resolutions, one of the best things you can do is start fresh by starting clean. The clean environment will help inspire you to do great things. Start fresh and clean inside your car. Take pride in your ride. Schedule a full interior detail with Shine Auto Detailing. Most of their clients say they make the car cleaner than it was the day it was new. Schedule online, shineautodetailing.net. Mention you heard it right here on the show at Tutel Nuanez. They'll throw in a $20 winter windshield treatment for safer winter driving. How about that? Right there for free, just for saying Coulter's in my name. They're at Shine Auto Detailing. Online at shineautodetailing.net. Go schedule right now, shineautodetailing.net.
At the Montana Club, our goal is to create a menu of mouth-watering food with variety to satisfy any craving. From the garden-fresh ingredients in our salads to our succulent, perfectly grilled Montana Club Angus steaks, we take pride in every detail that goes into preparing your food. Top off your meal with a premium cocktail, wine, or microbrew. Come as you are and satisfy your craving with our home-style breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey guys, it's Ryan and Coulter from Tutel and Nuanez here to tell you about our brand new project that we are so excited to release, Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree, the podcast series with all of the living coaches in the history of the University of Montana men's basketball team.
From the legendary godfather of the coaching tree, Judd Heathcote, a string of some of the most successful coaches in college basketball had their careers start at the University of Montana.
It really is a remarkable group when you sit back and think about it and what all of these guys have accomplished throughout their careers in the game. And Coulter, I'm excited because Wednesday, our first one comes out, Jim Brandenburg.
Brandenburg was only the head coach at Montana for 2 years, but he was certainly the bridge from Judd Heathcote to Mike Montgomery, and that set the stage for the rest of this tremendous coaching tree. We'll be excited each week throughout the winter and spring to roll out Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast.
Just search Grizz Greats wherever you get your podcasts and listen all season long. Grizz Greats, a Coaching Tree podcast, is brought to you by Blackfoot Communications.
Hey there, Coulter Nuanez from your favorite daily sports talk show, Tutel Nuanez. I'm here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom, last winter I got a sweet car starter. It's something I think everybody needs.
You know, Coulter, I couldn't agree more, and my wife sure thinks so too. We've got a lot of sweet deals. We actually have it capable now where you can start it from your phone from anywhere you'd like. We have two-way remotes that'll confirm to you the vehicle started all the way down to our basic package starting at just $299 installed. Come on in and check us out.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Missoula Sports Center.
Saturday, 3 of Montana's 4 Big Sky Conference basketball team lost. The only team that won was the Montana State women's basketball team. But on Thursday, 3 of the 4 Treasure State teams posted victories, and there was the Montana State women that were the only ones to suffer defeat. Good evening. Ryan Tutel, Colter Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you.
The Montana men bounced back from a loss at Northern Colorado for a resounding statement win over Eastern Washington. In a rematch of the last 2 Big Sky tournament title games, the Grizz dismantled the preseason Big Sky favorites on the way to a 90-63 victory in Cheney. Grizz freshman DJ Carter Hollinger scored 20 points, snared 14 rebounds, and blocked 4 shots, while helping the Grizz foul out EWU All-League big man Mason Peatling. Syed Pridgett scored 18 points, dished out 8 of Montana's 21 assists, and grabbed 8 rebounds as Montana moved to 4-1 in league play to sit atop the league standings.
Harold Frey scored 14 of his game-high 22 points in the final 6 minutes, and the Montana State men overcame an 8-point deficit late in the game to rally for a 71-68 victory in Idaho over Idaho in Moscow. MSU missed 12 of their first 13 shots from beyond the arc, but still managed to move to 3-2 in league play with their second road victory of the season.
And finally, Lady Grizz rolled to a 92-54 win over Eastern Washington. And Montana native Natalie Klinker, she's from Fairfield, hit a pair of game-sealing free throws to lift Idaho past the Lady Cats, 69-68, 002.
Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Heck of a game last night if you're a Grizz fan. Actually, really heck of a game if you're a Cat fan, too. I mean, 71-68. That's actually the entertaining game of the evening on the men's side. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Outstanding to be with you on this Friday evening as we head into a huge football weekend. Can't wait for it. Hope you are well. Thanks for spending some time with us. At Gus Tutel, at 102.9, and at Skyline Sports MT, your relevant Twitter handles. You can also check us out on Instagram at 102.9 ESPN as well. Colter, the Montana Grizzlies went on the road at Eastern Washington, and we talked about this game a fair amount yesterday. And Eastern Washington, 2-1 in league play. They are 1 loss by 1 point. They are leading, or the number 3 scoring team in the nation coming into the game last night, almost 86 points a game. They're top 10 in terms of pace of play. They have a number of name guys returning, and then a great freshman point guard who has been outstanding for them, Magnuson. And they are playing at home against a team that beat them the last 2 seasons in the championship game. You thought this would be a game that had some edge to it. And Montana has been good, but coming off a loss and trying to, figure it out a little bit with a bunch of young guys. What were they going to have last night? And they dismantled Eastern Washington and Cheney last night. I mean, they from basically the first about 3 minutes of the game on, were simply dominant in every way. They were up, I think, 18 at halftime. And at that time, I thought that the first 5 minutes of the second half was going to be important because Montana had been down at halftime in those 2 championship games and come back and won. And that Shante Legans was telling his guys, hey, you know what? We're down, but they've been down and come back and beat us. There's no reason we can't do that, and we should at home. And Montana just kept on the gas pedal and ends up winning this thing going away by nearly 30 points, a 27-point victory. Derek Carter Hollinger, his coming out party, like you said, in the Sports Center there, 20 points, 4 blocks, 14 rebounds, a massive double-double, was all over the place. Syed Pridgett was held to 4 of 10 from the field. He was clearly the key on defense. He still scored 18 because he went 10 of 11 from the free throw line, scoring double digits at the charity stripe. And Kendall Manuel still went for 14. Timmy Falls, also a big night with 12 points and 6 assists. I think that was huge. He had six assists and 2 turnovers. If you get a 3-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio out of Timmy Falls, you are in great shape, not to mention the scoring that he brought to the table as well. 4 of 9, 1 of 2 from beyond the arc. Great night for Timmy Falls. But it was DCH's coming out party last night. And look, he was the guy that Shante Legans was willing to let sort of be the guy to beat them in a certain sense. And so he was poised, given the defense that they were running, to have a big night. But he also came through. And I said this to you yesterday. I felt like Derek Carter Hollinger last night was what I saw out of Timmy Falls. Was it against North Dakota his freshman year? I forget the game that it was.
UC Irvine.
Irvine, okay.
Timmy Falls had 14 points, and he hit, I think, 3 threes.
And Timmy Falls, was a pretty heralded recruit, and he's playing as a freshman. You're excited, and he really was. He was not very good the first.
No, he's
couple
awful.
Of
he was
weeks,
he started his career 1 of 18.
Yeah, I mean, just bad for the first.
I think he
part.
had like a 0 to 5 assist to turnover ratio. He had something like 10 turnovers before he had his first assist.
And you sit there and go, okay, well, what's really going to happen? What really is this kid? And then he had a game where you go, okay, there it is, and that's what we got out of Derek Carter Hollinger last night. Now, it's not to say that he's going to be 20 points or double-digit scoring every night and all that kind of stuff, but you see now like what it is, what this kid brings to the table, and he was absolutely outstanding. And by the way, it wasn't just him. He wasn't the guy that beat the team. He was the most impressive maybe for the Grizzlies last night, but as a group, they moved the ball better than I've seen them move the ball. They were locked in defensively, and I thought that they were absolutely primed and ready to go. And I thought, I mean, they didn't make the statement maybe they had hoped to make in Northern Colorado. They made it last night.
Well, Coach DeCuire said that in the post-game radio show with Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz on the Grizzly Sports Radio Network. He said, we felt we had a chance to make a statement to the rest of the league by going 4-0 with a win at Northern Colorado. It didn't happen. So then Coach DeCuire said, we had everybody's attention. We had one-on-one meetings with the guys about some things that we needed, about some changes we had to make offensively. Our shot selection was killing us. Our pace was killing us. And our offense turns into pressure on our defense, and we were giving up a lot of transition in Northern Colorado. It was a huge issue, so we made sure to demand everybody's attention. He went on to say, we told them specifically, he was referring specifically to Syed Pridgett and Timmy Falls, who are kind of the two facilitators of this offense. He said, we told them at some point you have to let the offense work. You have to read the screens, play off the screens, set the screens, let the defense react. When you're going to see what you're going to see, and then get good shots. You can't premeditate every possession. You can't decide who's going to go down and score, in other words. He said, I thought guys took their time. They had patience. I thought guys found themselves wide open shots. We got a ton of layups by driving into the paint, coming to a stop instead of settling for a contested pull-up. And that's where I think Timmy and Saeed were getting most of their assists. Our willingness to be patient and share the ball was huge. And that's what I saw. Timmy Falls could beat anybody in the league off the dribble. But sometimes he gets in the lane, and he'll, sometimes he'll throw the behind-the-back pass, and it's right on the money. But also sometimes he'll throw the behind-the-back pass into the stands, or sometimes he'll take a pull-up 12-footer, which in this day and age in basketball is the worst shot you can take because you're not going to draw a foul. It's a low-percentage shot if it's contested, and it's not a three. So that mid-range jumper, I mean, Kendall Manuel's mid-range is a lot different than what Timmy Falls and Syed Pridgett sometimes get into. And I thought just that simple detail that Coach DeCuire said, get in the lane, jump stop. See what happens.
Yeah.
Your defender jumps. How many times did Timmy Falls jump stop, pivot, wide open
drop
layup?
It off. Yeah.
Here's Saeed for a layup. Here's Derek Carter Hollinger for a layup. The Grizz went from a team that was, I mean, seriously, we're talking 6 days ago. The Grizz were a team that were brutal to watch on offense to a team that looked beautiful offensively last night.
It was fun. It was really fun. It's interesting to me too, Coulter, because we talk about shooters getting into a rhythm a lot, and if a shooter, they just need to see it go through once, and then they can start to feel it a little bit. The same is true, not to the same extent, to me though, with passers. And if Timmy Falls gets a great look to somebody and they knock down a shot, or if he sets somebody up on an alley-oop or something like that, he starts to get into a flow, and it builds for him where he's looking to pass pretty regularly, but there's a difference between looking to pass and looking to really set your teammates up and doing things on your end to ensure that they got bunnies and easy shots all over the place. And I thought that was the sort of flow that he got into last night as a passer in that game. And centrally, as great as Derek Carter Hollinger was last night, the reason the offense looked good was because Timmy Falls ran it well. I mean, he's the guy. If he's got 6 assists and 12 or 14 points.
12 points.
I mean,
after scoring 15 combined in his last 5 games.
Right. I mean, you're in. I mean, that's almost an unlosable stat line for Montana when he does that, because that means that everybody's now rolling off of what he does. He is not Harold Frey, but when he's playing his best in terms of to make the team the best, he can have that sort of impact on this team, and he did last night.
And the thing that Coach DeCuire has talked about extensively with Timmy Falls is that he can't let one possession affect the next, and he can't let his offense affect his defense. And the reason he has a chance to be so special is when he put just those two things, when he's just plays within the flow of the offense, and then he stays steady in his own emotion, then he can also become one of the best, if not the best. Jonah Radabaugh's so much bigger than Timmy Falls, so he's the best on-ball perimeter guy in the league, but Timmy Falls is one of the peskiest defenders. Timmy Falls is like the Pat Beverly of the Big Sky Conference. He gets in your head, he's annoying you, he's playing defense with his hands behind his back while he's taunting the refs, and he's the feast or famine that is Timmy Falls. I think it's what makes him him. I think it's what makes him a fan favorite. It's also, I think, probably what sometimes drives his coaches crazy. But when he's good, he's so good. And if they could just harness it, you don't need Timmy. The stats are secondary for Timmy Falls.
Yeah.
You need Timmy Falls to be steady. And when he is, he's so good. And last night, he was so good. I also thought that Eastern Washington had a definitive game plan to double and trap Syed Pridgett in the half court relentlessly. And I was so surprised that, Montana scored, 46 or 48 points in the first half. And I thought that letting that roll for a full half and letting a team score almost 50 on you.
Yeah, 46-28 at the break.
Yeah, you're down 18. I thought out of halftime they would have just scrapped that. But they kept in it for another 9 minutes in the second half, all the way to the point where the only reason they really got out of it is because Mason Peatley got in foul trouble and then ultimately fouled out. But they were just dead set on letting Derek Carter-Hollinger and Mac Anderson, which I don't think is actually a bad game plan if you're Shante Leggins, but when those guys are, it's very apparent that they're rolling. I thought that they would get out of it, and they really didn't. And then the last factor that's worth touching on is the way Montana plays the high ball screen and the way that their big men have to show and hedge, and they do such a hard hedge before they peel back. It's why young big guys have such a hard time in the system, because they just almost, even Jamara Coe towards the end of his career picked up cheap fouls a lot, just because when you do the hard hedge, if the point guard is smart and savvy, he'll brush off your hip, and then all of a sudden the contact, he's getting the call. But last night, Derek Carter-Hollinger and Mac Anderson both showed and slipped and rolled and moved fluidly, and even though Mac Anderson did foul out in 18 minutes of play, he still looked so much more confident. And I think that the quote that Coach DeCuire ended his interview with was phenomenal. He said, "Now at this point in time, we had a little desperation because we knew Eastern hadn't played great against some teams, and they thought they should have blown out. So we thought if we came in here and pulled this one off, we'd be in first place. We'd push another team behind us, but more importantly, we'd make people a little nervous. We need people to be nervous. We don't want them to have too much confidence. This league is going to be a roller coaster ride, but we know that if we get the respect we believe that we deserve and everybody else is a little bit more nervous playing us, that gives us a chance." And I just think it's very interesting. There's turning points in every season, and you never know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But to me, comparing this team's performance, the Montana Grizzlies, when they played Omaha to when they played Sacramento State to when they played Southern Utah to when they played Northern Colorado to what they played like last night, it was a revelation. It was a completely different team. And that's the type of jump. When coaches talk about the light coming on, the light came on for half of the guys in the rotation last night. You want to talk about excellent coaching? If you have one-on-one meetings with a handful of guys and every single one of them responds like you wanted them to, that's coaching. That's excellent coaching. And so I thought it was a great job by Travis DeCuire and his staff.
I have one-on-one meetings 2 to 3 times a day with every single one of my children, and none of them respond the way that I want them to. So I'm going to have to go down to Travis and say, "Hey, man, what do I need to do? How do I need to inspire my son to put some pants on?" Because he's not into it. One other thing that I think is absolutely worth paying attention to on this too, Coulter, because it's easy to talk about the offensive side of this thing. Eastern Washington's averaging 86 points a game. They get held to 63. They're averaging 33-point attempts a game. They shot 14, and not only did they just shoot 14, they went 4 of 14, under 30% from beyond the arc. So you want to talk about where the points go, there you go, and Travis DeCuire did talk about that in his postgame as well. But again, we talked yesterday about how especially now the points allowed per game is a lying statistic. But one statistic that doesn't lie is how much you allow below or above, depending, your opponent's average in a game.
Right.
And to hold a team 23 points below their average is lockdown. I mean, it's straight. It's prison defensively, and they were phenomenal.
And have an 18-point lead at halftime. You have to string together so many stops.
Yes, completely. So what they did to get Eastern Washington, especially off their shot, off the 3-point line, was phenomenal last night. They didn't even let them shoot the shots they wanted, to say nothing of contested shots.
And you have to talk about the edge Montana played with, too. I mean, last year in the Big Sky tournament, one of the most memorable moments, one of the most controversial moments, was when Saeed Pridgett was on a fast break and Kim Aiken tried to kill him. I mean, he took his head off. He straight up clotheslined him from behind, and Saeed Pridgett crumbled under the basket and then got up, and it was almost a bench-clearing brawl, and they stopped it, and, technicals, and people almost got ejected.
It's a pretty long conversation that was had for 48 minutes or 40 minutes last night between these two teams.
Saeed Pridgett played absolutely the best off-ball defense I've ever seen him play. He's always been a very solid, but by no means game-changing defensive player. He deflected half a dozen balls into the stands. He's denying Kim Aiken so hard. And he was just John. Kim Aiken, who is
really good player,
one of the edgiest and enforcer type guys in the whole league, he wilted with Saeed Pridgett all over him. Jacob Davidson tried to make up for it, and Saeed Pridgett actually almost whipped Jacob Davidson late. There was the moment where Davidson tried to draw the charge, but he got called for a block, and Pridgett just stepped over the top of him and stared down at him, and Davidson get up and pushes him. And there's certainly you don't want to say bad blood, because I think this is right on the edge.
It's great rivalry.
It's a great rivalry.
Yes.
It's a great rivalry. It's a healthy respect where it's like a sports hate thing where they just really want to beat each other, and I think that both coaches really play into that. And I thought it was a really fun game to watch from that element, but you could tell that all the Grizz guys, they were certainly playing with an edge. There was no mistake that everybody in this game was told, even the guys that weren't on the team before, we lost in Cheney 2 years in a row. We got to go in here and we got to prove ourselves.
It's Division I sports, man. And more than that, it's basketball. I mean, this is what basketball is, stepping over guys, jawing at guys, going at guys. I mean, that's what the game. If you don't like that, you don't like the sport. So it was phenomenal, and it was a statement, and I think an eyebrow raiser across the conference, to be sure, with not just the win but the way that win happened. By the way, the Lady Grizz, as dominant, in fact more dominant last night, a 92-54 win. Taylor Goligoski, 21 points last night. The difference is Eastern Washington women are terrible in terms of their injury situation right now. A lot of girls out and just haven't been good. I mean, they're now 2-11 on the year. They're 1-3 in the conference. So this is absolutely a game that Montana had to have, but they had it and had it easily. I mean, they cruised to a 92-54 win and are now 4-1. And with the loss by Montana State at home last night to Idaho, in double overtime, by the way, heck of a basketball game, a 1-point double overtime victory for the Vandals. These two teams are 4-1, and they are alone tied atop the Big Sky Conference now. So a big win, a win that you need, a win that you should get, and they did. But also, it's still a W, and it puts you right there a quarter of the way through the conference season, tied for the top spot. So a good win for the Lady Grizz last night, and a tough loss for Montana State. Look, Idaho comes in. They have lost their Splash sisters and the two most prolific 3-point shooters in the history of the conference, who were teammates, are now gone at Idaho. Now we know that Don Verlin is an unbelievable coach.
John Newley.
John Newley. Don Verlin is on the men's side.
Yep.
But John Newley, phenomenal coach, and he's going to have a plan. It's not just hinging on two players or whatever. But Montana State has been the clear-cut best team in the conference, and they have been expected to be that. And so to lose at home in double overtime certainly, doesn't derail a season or anything like that. But to stay 5-0 and win a home game would have been great for Montana State, and it didn't happen in a great game. I mean, an epic double overtime game last night at the Brick.
I remain leery over the Lady Grizz just because I do think that they're 4-1 and that's good, but they still and they've looked better. They certainly have.
They haven't played the best of this conference yet.
Eastern Washington is a mess right now. Eastern Washington graduated 6 seniors last year, but then also Jessica McDowell White, who was one of the best freshmen in the league last year, she's out. Bella Cravens, who was one of the best freshmen in the year last year, she's out. And Grace Kirchner it just came back from an injury, and so she's still getting her feet wet. So those are their three best players.
Yeah.
They're not 100%. But John Newley at Idaho, in my opinion, is no question the best coach in the league. And he might be the best basketball coach in the league. He's got a couple contenders on the men's side, certainly. But on the women's side, Tricia Binford is great. There's no doubt. But I think that and Lynn Kennedy at Portland State is underrated. Seton Sobolewski at Idaho State, it always has a defined style. They're always going to be competitive. But John Newley is the master. I mean, John Newley's offensive actions are elite. I mean, they ran an NBA style offense the last couple of years because they had spectacularly special players. I mean, I think there's been 12 or 13 women that have hit 400 threes or more in their career, and they had two of them on the same team playing at the same time. But, I mean, John Newley has some personal stuff that makes it so that he has to stay at Idaho. I don't want to get too much into that, but they are so lucky to have him. I mean, he's led the Idaho Vandals to the NCAA tournament 4 times.
Right.
That's how good he
Remarkable.
is. And that's what I saw last night. He kept the game close, and then he won the game through his coaching the last 2 overtimes. And huge credit to John Newley. That's a huge win on the road for Idaho.
Last thing quickly we want to touch on here, but the Montana State men's team did win in Moscow. We thought, Coulter, that Idaho was going to be maybe the doormat of the conference, and they still may be. They had such a bad non-conference and multiple losses to D2 schools and worse. And they graduated a bunch of people and had the coaching change in the offseason. It's just like, what are they going to be? But they have won a game, and also I think they have like 2 1 or 2 point losses.
They lost to Weber State by 1.
Yeah, lost to Weber by 1, and they lose to Montana State by 3. So they're playing teams tough, and so give them some credit for that. But nonetheless, it's a win for Montana State. Jabril Bello, a double-double, 15 and 10, and then Harold Frey, after a 5-point night 2 games ago, has gotten steadily better the last couple of games. 22 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds. That is a stat line that looks like a W when you talk about Harold Frey and what he brings to Montana State. They go to 3-2 and get the first road win in the career of Danny Sprinkle in the Big Sky Conference.
Danny Sprinkle articulates it a little bit better than Robin Selvig ever did. Robin Selvig was so great at downplaying everything and trying to make everything sound like it's just so simple. You either make shots or you don't. That's Coach Selvig's famous line from 40 years of basketball. But Sprinkle's team is operating with sort of a Selvig-like mentality in the fact that here's their 3 goals.
Got to wrap it up.
Win the rebounding battle, make more free throws than your opponent, and turn the ball over 12 times or less. If you do that, you can shoot 35%, and your opponent shoots 48%, and you can still win. They just ham and egged it all the way to the last 4 minutes, and then they said, Harold Frey, here's the ball.
Go make it happen.
He scored 14 points in the last 5 minutes, and they won by 3. And, I mean, any road win for an unknown team like the Bobcats on the road in the Big Sky Conference is a good win, even if Idaho is down.
Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. On the other side, Gracie Carter, junior at Belgrade, a 3-sport athlete, and the Montana State Lieutenant Governor of the Key Club, going to join us. She's our Mattress Firm Student of the Week right after this. Hey, Polaris New Year's sales event is on, and it's on now. It's time to find your perfect ride at Kurtz Polaris with financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months and savings of up to $3,500. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and on Highway 83 in Sealy. The mountains are full of snow, and Kurtz has all the best machines, apparel, and accessories to take full advantage of the season. Online at KurtzPolaris.com. The most fun you can have in snow. Kurtz Polaris, winter awaits.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, ooh, pump it up.
Your local Town Pump has lots of energy. Pick up a couple of 16.9-ounce Vita Cocos, buy one, get one free. And 16-ounce Monster or Reign energy drinks, 2 for $4. If you want it, Town Pump's got it. And there's one right down the road from you.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, oh yeah.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
More bedrooms, a big yard, better commute. Whatever your reason to buy a new home, it's the right reason. In a tough housing market, the smartest thing you can do is pre-qualify for a loan before you start looking. Farmers State Bank makes it easier than ever to start the loan process with online checklists, forms, and calculators. Your dream home is out there. Get started today at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
Everybody knows that high school sports generate suspense, excitement, and drama.
They also generate higher grade point averages, stronger work habits, and greater self-esteem.
Everybody knows that high school sports give us more value for our entertainment dollar.
They also give us leaders committed to strengthening communities right here in Montana. The true value of playing sports in school can't be measured in wins and losses or dollars and cents. Studies show that participation in sports, along with other extracurricular activities, is one of the best ways to teach leadership, cooperation, accountability, and other invaluable life skills. Don't just stand on the sidelines. Encourage the young people you know to get in the game. When you do, you'll be helping them get ahead in life. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education. This message presented by the Montana High School Association and the Montana Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Look what you're doing.
Time for our Mattress Firm Student of the Week. It's Tutel and Nuanez. 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television across the great state, the 406. Appreciate you letting us be with you here on a Friday afternoon, fading quickly into evening. Hope you are well. We appreciate each and every one of you out there. We certainly do.
We're happy to welcome in now our Mattress Firm Student of the Week from Belgrade High School, Gracie Carter. She's a junior there, a three-sport athlete. Gracie, thanks so much for being with us. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you guys?
We're doing fantastic. Thank you so much. And we always like talking to kids who are doing stuff around their communities and they're in their schools. And you're certainly one of those. Tons of stuff that you're into. But we're in basketball season right now. You're a junior there. How has it been going for you at a place like Belgrade to go from single A to double A and also being a three-sport athlete?
I mean, it's a little bit of a change. I guess there's a little more kind of competitiveness involved with it. I think that our school, like our athletic trainer, has been really good with. We've played a couple A schools this year, and last year we played a couple double A schools, just kind of to get that transition over. So it's definitely something new, but I think it's something that, our school's gone from a C to a double A throughout its years. So I think it's definitely something we could get used to and definitely rise up in the ranks.
How would you just describe this year's team? How's it going, and what do you think just of this group of young ladies that you're playing with?
I'd say this year we have a pretty young team. Most of it's sophomores on our varsity, but I think that they're all doing a really good job at stepping up, and I think that if we do have a young team, it's good that we're together now, because that means in the next few years, when they're all upperclassmen, I think our team's going to be pulling through pretty good. But I think we're hanging in there pretty good right now.
In the spring, you're going to do track and field. You're on the 1 and 300 hurdles, so God bless you for that, for being one that'll go out and do it. But also, I know you're a big javelin thrower as well, and your goal is to beat the school record in the javelin. What do you need to do to do that this spring?
Yeah, so I'm working on getting into the weight room. It's hard with basketball, but whenever I can, try and just get stronger for that. Definitely working with my coach for javelin. I've only been throwing half a year. It's something I've wanted to do since freshman year, but like never took the step and did it. And so after half a year, I threw 112 feet, and that gives me, I'm about 26 and a half feet away. So definitely just focusing a lot more on that and kind of working harder at it, because it seems like a short distance, but it's going to take some work to get there.
What's the hardest part about learning how to throw the javelin? Because it's a little different than the other throws. It takes a little bit different type technique. For you, what was the biggest challenge?
I'd have to say probably with throwing it, I threw disc when I was younger. It's probably really getting my hips around to get the power, but also I kind of drop my wrist a lot, and that kind of brings the momentum or like the angle down, which doesn't let the javelin go as far. So that's also one thing I'm going to be working on, is just a lot more technique and keeping my wrist where it's supposed to be to let the javelin release at the right point.
Gracie Carter joining us. She's our Mattress Firm Student of the Week, a junior at Belgrade High School. And Gracie, you do a bunch of stuff off of the sports side of things as well. You've been a part of the Can the Grizz food drive and also Key Club. You're the lieutenant governor of the Key Club. Talk to us about that. What is Key Club, and how did you become the lieutenant governor of it?
So Key Club is one of the largest student-led organizations for community service. And really what we do is not only in our community, but also all around the world. We just help out as much as we can. And so one of my older brothers told me about it because I told him I wanted to get involved with the community and help out. And he told me about it because a friend of his was actually the governor at the time. And so she got me involved and made me reporter my freshman year. And then right after that, lieutenant governor is a state position. So it's the Montana Key Club, state board, and we set up conferences we do for kids from all sorts of different clubs. And there was an open position, and the last lieutenant governor for our division was from Belgrade, so I decided to just continue it on. So for the past 2 years, I've been lieutenant governor.
What are some of the things you guys have got out and done, and what have you learned personally? What have you learned from the experience of being in Key Club?
We help out. A couple big projects is we do the Eliminate, which is to help eliminate neonatal tetanus, and it's super simple. Like in third world countries, it's just a simple shot, but it's hard for them to get it. And we also we donate money and raise money to help build orphanages for kids in Uganda to help prevent them from getting kidnapped for witchcraft. But in our community, we also do a big one is Home is Where the Heart Is. It's to help with homelessness. So we just get awareness out there and also donate and just volunteer as much as we can to help with homelessness. And I just think I didn't know how much homelessness was in Belgrade, but I've just learned a lot about how much we're able to do and how much kind of in the shadows of help people need, but we're able to help so easily.
Well, Gracie, that's fantastic. We certainly appreciate you being with us, and best of luck through the rest of the basketball season and then into the spring with track and field here in your junior year. Okay, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gracie. Again, Gracie Carter from Belgrade High School. She's our Mattress Firm Student of the Week. If you would like to submit a Student of the Week, you can do it on the Mattress Firm website, mattressfirmmt.com. You go there, you click on the Students tab, and you submit any kid that you know is doing good things in their home, in their community, in their school, whatever it may be, and they will be featured on SWX as a feature story, both on the news and the website there, and then here on Tutel Nuanez as part of the ongoing series. And Mattress Firm Student of the Year will be voted on in the spring. The winner of that, a $3,000 Mattress Firm scholarship for them for next year. So that's a very cool thing as well. So there you go, mattressfirmmt.com. We'll take a quick break. Hour one of the books. Up next, Mike Dugar. It's divisional weekend. The Seattle Seahawks at the Green Bay Packers. I got the hat on today, people. Let's go. We'll talk to Dugar right after this.
If There's a saying, opportunity never knocks twice. When you're ready to take advantage of your next opportunity, look to your local bank. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Opportunity Bank offers options for mortgage loans, small business loans, equipment financing, agriculture, and more. Our experienced team can provide solutions to help you welcome your next big opportunity. There's nothing like the feeling of progress. So let's get started today. Come see us at your local Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
The holidays passed, sick of the snow, looking forward to the weekend and a tube of cookie dough? You got the wintertime blues now, baby. It's the wintertime blues.
Wait, the wintertime blues? Have you not been to the Desperado?
Desperado?
Yeah, nightly hockey and basketball, all the NFL playoffs, the best hot wings in Missoula, plus thick, juicy burgers and beer to go around. The Despo is an oasis of happy any time of the year.
Honey, get out of that rocking chair. The sun is shining at the Despo.
Marshawn in the backfield. Marshawn goes up over the top. He's in. Touchdown, Seahawks.
Survive and advance. The Seahawks continue their playoff run as they travel to Green Bay to take on the Packers in the divisional playoffs. Join Steve Rabel and Dave Wyman this Sunday. Pre-game at 2. Kickoff at 4:40. Right here on the Seahawks Radio Network.
Russell steps up in the pocket. Looks. Still looking. Now he fires. Ball is caught. Touchdown, Seahawks.
There you have it. The Seattle Seahawks into the divisional round of the playoffs will renew their rivalry with the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field Sunday evening. Once again, you can hear the game right here on 102.9 ESPN Radio, the official Seattle Seahawks affiliate of Western Montana. It's been a great season, and it continues this weekend, 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon for pregame, kickoff at 4:40. 102.9 ESPN Radio in Western Montana, your home for the Seattle Seahawks.
If you are hurt or disabled, you may be entitled to benefits from an insurance company or Social Security. I'm Chris Helmer, an attorney at Clark Fork Law Offices. Our Missoula firm specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. There are many unknowns when injured or disabled. The other side is fighting hard. You should too. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana. KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tutel, Colter Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. Big night in the Big Sky Conference basketball hardwood last night. On Saturday, going back over the weekend, 3 of Montana's 4 Big Sky Conference basketball teams lost. The only team that won was the Montana State women. Last night, the reverse. The Lady Cats were the only team to lose of the 4 Montana schools in action last night.
The Montana men bounced back from a loss at Northern Colorado for a resounding statement win over Eastern Washington. In a rematch of 2 teams that played for the Big Sky title each of the last 2 years, the Grizz dismantled the preseason Big Sky favorites on the way to a 90-63 victory in Cheney. Grizz freshman DJ Carter Hollinger scored 20 points, snared 14 rebounds, blocked 4 shots, and helped the Grizz foul out EWU All-League big man Mason Peatling. Grizz senior side Pridgett scored 18 points, dished out 8 of Montana's 21 assists, and grabbed 8 rebounds as Montana moved to 4-1 in league play atop the league standings.
Harold Frey scored 14 of his game-high 22 points in the final 6 minutes, and Montana State men overcame an 8-point deficit late in the game to rally for a 71-68 victory over Idaho in Moscow. MSU missed 12 of its first 13 shots from beyond the arc, but still managed to move to 3-2 in league play with their second road win of the season.
And finally, Lady Grizz blew out Eastern Washington 92-54. Lady Cats lost to Idaho 69-68 in double overtime.
This ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork Law.
Well, on a night run, boy, you better hold your tongue. Talking like you're coming from Kingdom Come. Rhythm and reeling, the feeling of riding the sound through the ceiling. Hey, hey, never got no money, but I'm running for
and Colter Nuanez.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. Outstanding to be with you on this Friday evening as we head into the biggest football weekend of the year. 2 national championships, Saturday and Monday, and then divisional round of the NFL playoffs, which we get to here in just a moment with our buddy Mike Dugar to talk Seahawks-Packers on Sunday evening. Tutel Nuanez broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios, and we are live on 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Outstanding to be with you. Thanks for being here. If you'd like to listen to us, maybe you miss something in the first hour, check it out on the podcast. The podcast is available wherever you get your podcast. The Tutel Nuanez podcast available all over the place. Rate it, review it, subscribe to it. We appreciate that. It is available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. We also, again, are excited to be releasing our Grizz Greats A Coaching Tree podcast, which is coming out the first episode with Jim Brandenburg Wednesday evening, this next Wednesday evening. We have interviewed all 9 of the living coaches who have coached at the University of Montana men's basketball team, as well as Robin Selvig. We're going to release that podcast series along with a bunch of players. There's actually an introductory podcast. Now you can hear about it a little bit more in depth. Just search Grizz Greats, okay? Just do that. Wherever you get your podcast, search Grizz Greats. It will come up for you that way. It is brought to us by our friends at Blackfoot Communications as well. So we appreciate them for that, and we're excited about this new enterprise that we have gone on. It's going to be a lot of fun, so you can go listen to it now.
We go now to the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. We welcome in our good friend Mike Dugar from The Athletic. Covers the Seahawks for The Athletic. You can find him on Twitter at Mike Dugar, also the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast. Go check that thing out. Mike, welcome back to the show. The Packers into the divisional round against the Seahawks, hosting the Seahawks off of a bye, the Seahawks off of a win in Philadelphia. Just quickly, your thoughts on that win in the wild card weekend. Obviously, Carson Wentz goes down, and it seemed like the writing was on the wall from that point. But what was your impression of that game and then the Seahawks thereafter and throughout this week coming out of it?
Well, they did that thing again where they play down to their competition, but they did that thing where they play down to their competition and win. And that final part is what's most important this time of year. Because I also got to give credit. You know, they played down, but like the defense kind of did play up. You know, you don't allow any touchdowns. Do that on the road right there. You get 7 sacks. I think one of them was on Carson. Yeah, I think the one that ended up knocking him out. It's like they stepped up in that regard. The only deep passes they got were pass interferences on Trey Flowers. They got 60 yards on 2 of those. So I will say they played really well on that end for the most part. But it was one of those games where, like, cool, you won, you did your job, got it. Now you got to play way better next Sunday if you want to have a chance.
You mentioned the 7 sacks, and we talked mid-season when Jadeveon Clowney was added and Ziggy Ansah was kind of maybe prone to return, and he's been kind of in and out still. But at one point in the season, the narrative was the potential that Seattle's pass rush could have and how important that could be. It seems, at least in the microscope of last week, it came together. How important has that pass rush emergence been, and are they where they could be? Have they reached their full potential rushing the passer yet?
I don't think so, no, and to answer the part about the potential. But you see what pressure does, because there's some of those sacks where, like, Josh McCown, like, scrambling, and then some guy, like, getting him down before he got back to the line of scrimmage is technically a sack. But that's what pressure does. Like, pressure forces you out of the pocket. And then once guys are out of the pocket, then you know, it's all about your skill set. Like, Josh McCown doesn't have one. But, you know, someone like Aaron Rodgers does. All right, so pressure will be good, but, like, this is one of those games where getting them down is, like, of the utmost importance. And then you have to, you know, couple that with the fact that this is probably the best pair of tackles, you know, in the league. I think Pittsburgh maybe has a good argument, but Green Bay definitely has the best pair in the NFC. So you got to deal with that. I think the main thing will be how they get that pressure, like they did in Philly. If you notice in Philly, everyone was coming on like blitzes. You know, Cody Barton, Bradley McDougald had a sack. Shaquille Griffin blitzed. He didn't get home on his, but he was sent on one. Trey Flowers, another corner that got sent on a blitz. I don't think he got home either. But, again, it's just like Ken Norton was like, look, I'm going to send the Wolves, and we're going to make this thing happen. And that's got to be what it is with Aaron Rodgers, because they're not just going to get a bunch of pressure with 4 men rushes against this unit. This is probably the best O-line left in the playoffs, maybe, we could argue, not just the NFC. So it's going to have to take some more creativity, and without it, there's no shot they win the game.
Mike Dugard joining us. He covers the Seattle Seahawks for The Athletic. And, Mike, always an interesting dynamic with a team coming off a bye where they have the advantage of being rested and healthy, and actually Green Bay is getting really healthy. Raven Green maybe even back off of the IR for this football game, so they're in really good shape. Seattle not so much, and I do want you to go through some of the injuries, but before that, talk to me about the dynamic between being rested and feeling good, but also not having yet played in the playoffs compared to having played and won in the playoffs, and there's always every year that sort of like, okay, here we go into the playoffs. You got to overcome maybe a little bit of nerves, all the excitement, some of the emotion of it with a new team each and every season, which Seattle has already done. So how do those two worlds kind of come together in this divisional round?
I think how your team prepares in the playoffs in general, whether you play in the wild card or the divisional round or whenever, starts with your leadership. Whether that's someone on defense, whether that's your head coach, whether that's your quarterback, whoever. Their tone, your leader's tone, will kind of trickle down. So with the Seahawks, you can tell that they look pretty much like equipped to battle. But regardless of the final score, they look like they're ready for the moment. Somewhere within that 60 minutes, whether it's beginning or the end, they look ready. And I think a lot of that is a product of Pete Carroll treating every game like, hey, championship opportunity. Week 3 is just as important as Week 17. And that trickling down to the leaders who have been here for a while, who then, because they behave that way, everyone else behaves that way. Football is a copycat sport, not because coaches are all copying each other, but because players emulate the people who are doing the right thing. So I think whether you have a bye or whether you're in the wild card round, that the behavior of your leaders will have as big an impact as anything. If Aaron Rodgers is ready for the moment, he's poised, he's calm, he's doing all the right things throughout the week, he's taking care of his body even when they have an off week. And then it'll have, some impact if the Smith brothers or whoever their defensive captains are in Green Bay are doing that. Then it'll work that way. The same thing, I would say in San Fran, they're going to see how Richard takes care of himself, and other veterans on that team. Like, all right, cool. This is how we need to handle having a bye and being prepared and ready to go in the postseason. So because the Seahawks, here's the other thing, though. Having a bye is still better. I know there's this thing about being rested, getting healthy. The thing is, I just rewatched the 2014 NFC title game. I watched a condensed version of it. Every play, boom, boom, boom. You just see that game is a perfect illustration of how just one play, 1 inch, one guy's foot is in or not, one guy gets his second hand on the ball or not, whatever, right? Anything can just tilt your whole season one way. And so the fewer games you have to play to get to the Super Bowl, the fewer times you have to necessarily hope for the ball to bounce your way, which is what this part of the season is all about. So, every team should want a bye, even if you're kind of banged up or not. So it's just how you perform in that game is all dependent on, the leadership you have and the focus that those guys exhibit throughout the week.
You touched on this briefly, but I want you to flesh this out for us a little bit more, because one thing in this game that I don't think is being talked about enough is Pete Carroll, a Super Bowl winning, 2-time Super Bowl coaching, oldest coach in the league in the best sense, the most experience and all that, against a rookie head coach in Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. How much of that do you think comes into play Sunday?
I think it'll come into play in terms of the preparation more than anything. It won't. I don't think the X's and O's stuff matter. Guys don't play calling doesn't magically get better or worse in the postseason. So the fact that Matt LaFleur hasn't been there, it's not like guys morph into new dudes when the postseason comes. It's still football, right? They're still going to run their scheme. You're still going to run your scheme. You're still going to make tweaks like you would to adjust for the opponent, strengths and weaknesses, just like you would in Week 2 or Week 7 or Week 10. That part, I don't think will matter. Again, it's just in the preparation. If Matt LaFleur has the right mindset with his guys and he instills that in his leaders and they go about things the right way, then it won't really seem like Matt LaFleur is, outmatched. Also, he's got the benefit of playing at home. He's also got the better team. So even if he was, completely just lost out there, his O-line, if they execute and the defense forces turnovers and sacks Russell Wilson, he'll be fine, whether he, goes out there and just has a cold the whole day and just goes silent. So I don't think it'll matter too much on the X's and O's part of his scheming. Football is a game of chess. no matter what week you play. And a better chess player, whether that's his first game or his 100th game of chess, is going to win on that given day. But, like, how each team comes out, how each team, like, looks, mentally prepared, whether it's nobody having pre-snap penalties or any unsportsmanlike after the play stuff or, doing too much early on, missing tackles, stuff like that. Whichever team comes out ready in that regard, it'll probably be a reflection of how they prepared during the week.
This time of year, we know that pretty much everybody's going to sell out to stop the run. It's going to come down to how much pressure you put on the quarterback. It's going to come down to how well the quarterbacks play. Two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, squaring off, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. So how much of this is going to be a quarterback duel? Is that how you see this matchup ultimately?
I mean, not necessarily. I wrote this week that Russell has to play a lot better than Aaron Rodgers for the Seahawks to win. But the inverse is not necessarily true. Like, Rodgers doesn't necessarily have to outplay Russell for his team to win. I mentioned that Green Bay has more talent, and they do. And part of it, it's not necessarily skill position guys, because you could go through, Seahawks have the better linebackers. The DBs might be a wash. Shaq might be the best DB. I'm not sure. Like, the other guys get their hands on the ball a lot more. Quandre might be the best safety. You can just go through the list and see that, like, pound for pound is probably a wash at a lot of spots. However, again, the O-line, people ignore the O-line when they talk about more talent. That's 5 dudes. That's on the field. If all those guys are better than all your guys, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think Dwayne is one of the best 5 offensive linemen in this game if he plays. To get my point, they have the better group up front with played more snaps together. I think they've had the same O-line since week 3. If Dwayne plays, that'll be great. But if not, they're looking at a bunch of backups. In Seattle, their run game has been really, really potent. The Seahawks was good too without Chris Carson. Now they got their 4th-string guy and then Marshawn Lynch. So, like, the talent gap, man, I think that's going to play so much of a role, and really, it's going to require Russell, like, playing out of his mind in order to win. Where Rodgers could just have a regular day. He could just throw for like 186, maybe a touchdown, doesn't turn it over, doesn't take any too costly sacks, and his team will win. Russ does that, they'll lose. Russ needs to throw for like 300 plus, maybe make a bunch of plays with his legs like he did against Philly. I'm thinking maybe over 45 rushing yards, maybe even over 50, running for at least 2 or 3 first downs, stuff like that, because his team is just, like, behind a little bit. Part of that's injuries, and part of that's just Green Bay is really good, and that's why they won 13 games.
Mike Dugard joining us. He covers the Seattle Seahawks for The Athletic. Seahawks, the nightcap on Sunday in Green Bay. That game kicking off at 4:40 Mountain Standard Time. We'll have it for you here on ESPN Radio. Pregame beginning at 2 o'clock. You just talked about Dwayne Brown, and you said the key word, if he plays. I know that Mikey Iupati was also out. I don't know what his status is coming into Saturday to Sunday. And then Ziggy Ansah and even Jadeveon Clowney not 100%. So those are big dudes. Who are the guys that we know are not going to play and the guys that we know are going to play? And give me some percentages on the question marks.
So of the guys who missed the game last week, I think the guys we can count on being back, I don't know if they'll be active necessarily, but we can count on them being, like, available. Are Malik Turner, who's a receiver, missed the last, I think, 2 weeks with a concussion, and then Juwan Brown, who missed the last 2 weeks, I think, with the knee injury. Yes, it was a knee injury. So I think those 2 will be back. I'm pretty sure you can kind of pencil those guys in. I wouldn't expect Mike Iupati and Ziggy to come back just because neck injury. They both have stingers, and neck injuries are just so hit and miss. You can miss a week, you can miss 2 weeks, you can never play again, like Cam Chancellor. They never give us enough information on the neck injury to know. So it's really tough to tell. And obviously, when those guys don't practice, that's a really bad sign as well. Dwayne Brown is the biggest if of the week. I think he's one of the most, I would say, top 4 most important players for the Seahawks on Sundays, at least in this game. I would say I would pencil him in as well. I know this is the week he's been targeting, and I don't think it's necessarily that he's not really practicing. I think Dwayne is, 33, 34. He can get by without practicing and then still play. He's been kind of doing a version of that all year. And if his knee is good, we'll hear from Pete Carroll later. But if his knee is good, then I would say he starts, he plays well. but he's like, he wanted a percentage on it. Let's go with about 65% in favor of Dwayne playing.
All right, Mike, so here we go. Feet to the fire once again. The Seattle Seahawks were open as a 4-point underdog. It's moved to 5 points, but they have lost, I think, their last 8 straight in Lambeau, but won the last several games against the Packers because they've been in CenturyLink in some epic games. Like you mentioned, that 2014 NFC Championship game probably tops them all. What do you think happens, though, ultimately on Sunday evening?
I actually wrote about Russ's struggles in Lambeau and the team struggles in Lambeau, but I do think Mike Pettin made a great point, the defensive coordinator in Green Bay, about the past. It really doesn't matter, and he's right. It does not. Every game is its own entity, is its own event. And I do think someone else also made this point that how Russell has performed against Mike Pettin's defenses is perhaps more predictive than his record in the venue itself. And he's done really well. I think against I want to say Jets, Browns twice maybe. At least Browns one of those times that he's done really well against his defenses. So that said, I will still think I will roll with the Packers in a close one, just because ultimately I think the more talented team playing at home should win, irregardless of anything else. So I will take the Packers 23-20. Yeah, I'll take the Seahawks to cover for all my gamblers out there. But I think it's going to take damn near a miracle to upset this team. I don't know if they have that in them.
We'll get you out of here on this, Mike. Switching out of the NFL playoffs, got to ask you your thoughts. I know you're a Wazoo alum. Mike Leach leaves Washington State. There's a lot of camps about Mike Leach. I know a lot of people in the media, especially the people that have TV cameras, like Mike Leach a lot. Me, myself, personally, I'm not into the style. I don't like the scheme, and I think that it's all smoke and mirrors from the press conference all the way through the end of the game. As a Wazoo alum, though, he led you guys to great heights, great success, some of the best success Wazoo's had this century and ever, quite frankly. Your thoughts on Mike Leach leaving the Palouse?
You can't have a discussion about Mike Leach's tenure in Washington State, or at Washington State, without a bit of context and some nuance. Right, because it's not just as simple as he was a good coach, bad coach. He was I guess on the field it kind of is. He was a really, really good coach. You could argue the best that Wazoo has had. Mike Price is the stronger argument, which, I think it's 1-2. I really don't think anyone else is in the discussion. That includes Dennis Erickson. I think it's just those two. It's frustrating that he would, every once in a while lay a stinker. Couldn't win the Apple Cup, didn't win any bowl games of any significance. We lost, I think, twice to FCS teams at home. That was obviously a problem. But, for the most part, with Mike Leach in charge, after he got all his guys in there, got the system in and was rolling, you could count on anywhere from 6 to 10 wins in any given season. And that, at Washington State, which I would argue is either the 11th or 12th best job in the Pac-12, right? So you're at the bottom of the barrel. For him to do that is incredible. I think he had us in the top 10 at one point. We had a guy finish 5th in the Heisman. I think Gardner Minshew did. Got game day. It's very hard to do better than what Mike Leach did unless you were competing for the Rose Bowl. That said, Mike Leach was also, I would say, just not a good dude. And a lot of I tweeted that as well. And a lot of people thought I was just talking about his political preference, which is not entirely it. If you look at Mike Leach, you look at how he treated people who weren't as powerful as him, whether that was a player, whether that was a member of the media. It just, look how he talked to them. Look how he addressed them. Look how he deflected blame in all situations, to avoid from holding himself accountable. That is what makes you not a good dude. It doesn't even matter whether you, Republican, Democrat, whoever, who cares. But even when it was something political, like him tweeting out the video, the doctor's video of Obama to try to make a political point, and then people telling him, "Oh, wait, hey man, this is actually not real. This is spliced together, and you have this wrong." He's like, "Oh, well, I just wanted to have a conversation about it." Well, it's like Mike, you can't have a conversation about a fake video. You're having a stupid conversation about that. And he didn't want to listen, and then deflected all the blame, and then was didn't want to hear anything anyone had to say. You can. I also don't think Mike was very smart, but and he was also stubborn as a coach, even if he was a good coach. So that's what I mean by some nuance. There were personality traits that he had that were just clearly not. Look how he responded in the last Apple Cup. Called John Blanchett, the spokesman of Reviews, sanctimonious troll because he asked a valid question about why he gets his butt kicked by Washington and blames recruiting, yet he had a 4-game win streak against Oregon and like a 3-game win streak against Stanford and beat USC and UCLA in his career. So I'm not excited to see him go because I know it'll be very tough to replace Mike Leach. I think, however, it is easier to find a coach to just not mess things up as opposed to rebuild. So I do think Mike's leaving the program in a better place than he found it. But at the same time, yeah, man, he can go. It was time. He was also trying to get out, like 3 off seasons in a row. Like, if you don't want to be here, then just go. He's Mississippi State's problem now. Hopefully we find a guy who can keep the train rolling here in the next couple of days.
Well, we will see. Mike Leach versus Lane Kiffin in the Egg Bowl will be an interesting one. It will also be a great game up in Lambeau Field. I can't wait for the Green Bay Packers and Seattle Seahawks on Sunday evening. Mike, as always, we appreciate you being here. Been here all season. We appreciate that very much, and we'll catch you next week, all right?
Oh, yeah. Hopefully. I hope the Seahawks win because I want to go to Miami for the Super Bowl. Hopefully we do this again, previewing the Seahawks-Vikings in the NFC title game up here in Seattle.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. Get the 5-6 for a home game. Okay, I see where we're going with this. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun no matter what. Mike, always appreciate it.
All right, thanks, man.
You bet. Mike Dugar covers the Seahawks for The Athletic, at Mike Dugar on Twitter, and he's been with us all year long, done a great job. We really appreciate him and his perspective. And win, lose, or draw, man, we're going to get Mike back in here, see what he's got to say about the Seahawks, do a retrospective if it's a loss and a preview if it's a win. So it'll be fun nonetheless. It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Guess what? We haven't even talked about this yet. We got to talk about this. It's a doggone FCS National Championship game tomorrow, and North Dakota State is an underdog against James Madison. We will talk to Sam Herder, a buddy from Hero Sports, about it. He is in Frisco right now. Looking forward, getting ready. This is seventh national championship he will cover down in Frisco for Hero Sports. So we will. He's somebody who knows what in the world's going on. We'll talk to him right after this. Hey, it's the new year. With all the resolutions, one of the best things you can do is start fresh by starting clean. A clean environment will help inspire you to do great things. Start fresh and clean inside your car. Take pride in your ride and schedule a full interior detail with Shine Auto Detailing. Most of their clients say they make the car cleaner than it was when it was new. Schedule an online at shineautodetailing.net. Mention you heard it here with Coulter and myself on Tutel and Nuanez, and they'll throw in a $20 winter windshield treatment for safer winter driving. Go to shineautodetailing.net. That's right, shineautodetailing.net. Schedule it right now. Clean your ride, make it safer, make it better. shineautodetailing.net.
Hey, it's David with Garden City Plumbing and Heating. When clogs occur, water is stopped from draining properly. If it can't go down the drain, chances are the water is going to want to come back up, causing dirty water to make its way back into your home and potentially causing serious damage. If you are currently experiencing slow or backed up drains and would like to have an expert come out and take a look, contact us today at 728-5550.
Hi there. It's Les Schwab Tires. Well, more like Les Schwab alignment,
I got it,
brakes,
Ryan.
and shocks and wheels and tires. Now, some tire places don't offer all that. They only sell tires. And we're not sure how they sleep at night because all those services affect things like steering and stopping. That's why we offer more than tires to help keep you safe. Stop by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Hey there, Coulter Nuanez from your favorite daily sports talk show, Tutel Nuanez. I'm here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom, last winter I got a sweet car starter. It's something I think everybody needs.
You know, Coulter, I couldn't agree more, and my wife sure thinks so too. We've got a lot of sweet deals. We actually have it capable now where you can start it from your phone from anywhere you'd like. We have two-way remotes that'll confirm to you the vehicle started all the way down to our basic package starting at just $299 installed. Come on in and check us out.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at MontanaAdvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Marshawn in the backfield. Marshawn goes up over the top. He's in. Touchdown, Seahawks.
Survive and advance. The Seahawks continue their playoff run as they travel to Green Bay to take on the Packers in the divisional playoffs. Join Steve Rabel and Dave Wyman this Sunday. Pre-game at 2. Kickoff at 4:40. Right here on the Seahawks Radio Network.
Russell steps up in the pocket. Looks. Still looking. Now he fires. Ball is caught. Touchdown, Seahawks.
There you have it. The Seattle Seahawks into the divisional round of the playoffs will renew their rivalry with the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field Sunday evening. Once again, you can hear the game right here on 102.9 ESPN Radio, the official Seattle Seahawks affiliate of Western Montana. It's been a great season, and it continues this weekend, 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon for pregame, kickoff at 4:40. 102.9 ESPN Radio in Western Montana, your home for the Seattle Seahawks.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. On Saturday, 3 of Montana's 4 Big Sky Conference teams lost. The only squad that won was the Montana State women. On Thursday, 3 of the 4 Treasure State teams, there it is, won. The only one that lost was the Montana State women. How about that for symmetry? Colton, tell them about the Montana Grizzly men's team.
Montana men bounced back from a loss at Northern Colorado Saturday for a resounding statement win over Eastern Washington. In a rematch of the teams that played for the last 2 Big Sky tournament titles, the Grizz dismantled the Big Sky favorites on the way to a 90-63 win in Cheney. Grizz freshman DJ Carter Hollinger scored 20 points, snared 14 rebounds, blocked 4 shots, and helped the Grizz foul out EWU All-League big man Mason Peatling. Senior Cy Pridgett scored 18 points, dished out 8 of Montana's 21 assists, and grabbed 8 rebounds as Montana moved to 4-1 in league play to sit atop the league standings.
The Harold Frey, scored 14 of his game-high 22 points in the final 6 minutes, and Montana State overcame an 8-point deficit in the game to rally to a 71-68 victory over Idaho in Moscow. MSU missed 12 of their first 13 shots from beyond the arc, still managed to get to 3-2 league play with their first road win of the season.
The Final Lady Grizz 4-1 in league play after a 92-54 win over Eastern Washington.
FCS National Championship. And that's the goal, isn't it? North Dakota State, James Madison playing each other for the third time in 4 seasons as the national championship game down there in Frisco, Texas. But this is the first time, I think the first time likely, right, Coulter, that James Madison will have been a favorite in this game. Pretty remarkable. That they are. Even I think it's 1.5 points, something like that. Very, very close game. But this is going to be, I think, a really, really good football game. I'm looking forward to it. And so we'll talk more about that right after this. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are on in Western Montana on ESPN and across the state on SWX Montana Television. Thanks so much for letting us be with you.
We go now to the Regis Brothers RV phone line, and we welcome in our good friend from Hero Sports, covers the FCS nationally. He is in Frisco for the national championship tomorrow between James Madison and North Dakota State. Sam Herder joining us. Sam, you're in Frisco once again. It's North Dakota State once again. And it's also James Madison, who I know that early on in this season you were very, very high on. I'm sure still very high on. But I'll tell you what, after watching what NDSU did to Montana State in the semifinal, all of a sudden I'm sitting here going, whoa, not so fast with the Dukes. Where are you at here on the eve of the national championship game?
Yeah, I have flip-flopped a few times this season, but my official prediction, I do have NDSU winning 21-20. That's kind of what my head is telling me, that it's hard to pick against NDSU, especially after, the Bison did play their best against Nichols, certainly had their struggles in the quarterfinals against Illinois State, but like you said, that Montana State game kind of reminded us of just what kind of monster this program still is, and that ultimately made me decide to go with the Bison, even though my gut still is kind of telling me that the Dukes have if anyone's going to knock off NDSU anytime soon, it's going to be this year with this James Madison team, but I still just have a hard time picking against NDSU down here.
Before we started this interview, we were talking off air just about the fact that you've been now to Frisco, Texas to cover this game 7 times. NDSU has been there 8 of the last 9 years. It's a completely unique situation because the FCS has had a neutral site national championship game, but the same team going to the same stadium, going to the same site, playing in the same arena every year to end their year for a decade. That's amazing. It's never happened any level of football. So, 2-part question. First of all, start with how much does the familiarity of just the experience, do you think, helps North Dakota State?
I think it helps a lot. The same thing can probably be said with James Madison, just because they've been here throughout the last 4 years. But especially with NDSU, they know the routine, and it's by the time game day hits, some of these players are pretty tired just because they have media interviews and community events, and I think last night they went to Top Golf, and they went somewhere else and went bowling, and they do some community events as well. So it's a pretty full slate down here in Texas, down here in Frisco for both teams. So I do think that familiarity is important, and it is a neutral site game, but I mean, there's thousands of Bison fans on their way here. There's already thousands of Bison fans here already. I went down for breakfast this morning, and I saw a group of about 10 NDSU fans checking into the hotel right by the stadium, and the front desk clerk goes, "Oh, great to see you guys again," because they had their rooms booked for the last year already. So it's just kind of become routine for this program and for this fan base.
And that leads me to the second part of this question then, because when I went down there last year to watch North Dakota State against Eastern Washington, when we were checking out of our hotel, there was a group of NDSU people saying, "Hey, just book me the same room, same time next year. We know we're going to be back." But just from a personal perspective, it's got to be kind of fun for you, because I thought Frisco doesn't really get much shine in terms of a tourist destination or whatever, but when you drive around, there's some fun stuff to do. It's not a bad place. I thought it was a great little place. So from a personal perspective, just navigating the same place for you, it must be pretty fun.
It is nice. I mean, yeah, we know kind of the roads and where to go and how to get to the stadium and the best routes to get to the stadium and kind of the best places to eat and maybe grab some drinks here or there. But the cool thing about Frisco, too, is it's such a fast-growing town where there's new restaurants popping up everywhere. So we kind of have our routines on places to eat. There's a great barbecue place right by the stadium. It's kind of our tradition to go there after the game and after everything is wrapped up. But there still is a bunch of stuff popping up everywhere where, every year I get here and I go, "Oh, this wasn't here, last year at this time." And I'm looking out my hotel window right now, and there's a big crane, across the highway putting up some kind of big building. So there's always something popping up down here. It's a great town.
Sam Herder joining us at Sam Herder FCS on Twitter, covers the FCS nationally for Hero Sports, does a great job of it. And Sam, if we're going to talk food, for gosh sakes, what else are we going to do around here? What's the spread like in the press box for the national championship? Is it filet mignon and roast duck? What do they have here for us?
Yeah, from what I remember, it's a breakfast spread. Up in the press box, it's kind of just your typical breakfast spread. You got the potatoes and the eggs and the bacon and stuff like that, some muffins and stuff like that. It's not an extravagant food spread for the media, but it's no complaints for me. It'll do, but from what I remember, it's always been a breakfast spread for the media.
Okay, now that actually is kind of what I wanted to get at, though. Oddly enough. Is it weird? I realize they do this because they get, ESPN television and it's national. I think it's even on ABC this year, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to check that. But they move, it's an early game, and for a national championship, the game of the year, to be played in a pretty odd time slot, frankly, for the sake of television. Is that I realize it's the norm at this point. I realize the teams are, quote unquote used to it since they've done this before, but isn't that still kind of odd? I mean, what would a Friday night thing be like? Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, it has been 11 a.m. on Saturday for a few years now. I know at one point it was like a 2:30 kickoff or something, 2-3, somewhere around there. Saturday afternoon. I just think, the players and coaches probably don't care about the time slot, but with the fan base, it's hard to. I mean, if you want a really good environment, you have to get the fans, liquored up a little bit, and obviously they do that. But getting the tailgating lots for fans at 6 a.m. after going to bed at 2 a.m. the night before, sometimes that might take away a little bit from the energy of the tailgating lots in the game. I do think a Friday night game would be fantastic, but the TV guys and ESPN plays a big part in that. And I did hear in an interview last week with the Southland commissioner, the Southland Conference kind of runs things from a logistical standard or logistical part down here, and he was asked if a Friday night game was ever possible, and he said they did think about that. The problem is sometimes the traffic down here at the 5 o'clock hour is tough for everyone to get to the game if it were to be a Friday night game. So I think they've talked about it, and right now they're just settling with that 11 a.m. Saturday time slot, just with the TV stuff and all that.
Okay, 2 words there. Cop-out. Cop-out. Don't talk to me about the traffic. You're going to be there at noon for crying out loud. Go to the... Okay, I'm over it. Go ahead.
Sam, I know you've done so many interviews already leading up to this game, so I want to just leave it open to you. What have you not said yet on a radio interview, or maybe what's a point you haven't made yet that has maybe dawned upon you, or that you just haven't gotten in, or that has eaten at you, or that maybe is just a new revelation as you think about this game, this matchup, and this afternoon?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think I'm going on with Knock later today out in Montana as well, and that'll be my 7th kind of radio, hit. And, I try not to repeat myself a whole lot and try to come up with some unique things. But, one thing that I haven't said yet, and, this will probably irritate NDSU fans, but I think for the FCS as a whole, I think the FCS needs a James Madison win here. I really do, because I think NDSU, no doubt in my mind, is going to win it all next year. The year after that, the Bison are going to have a great shot. The year after that, Trey Lance will be a senior. They're going to have a great shot then. And like I said earlier on the show, if there's going to be a blip on NDSU's radar, it's going to be this year, not only because of NDSU is a little younger, but also this James Madison team might be their best team that they've had, in the 2010s and maybe ever. So if this JMU team can't beat this NDSU team, when is it going to end? And at one point, does NDSU's dynasty go from, good to great to a dynasty to amazing to, okay, this is getting a little ridiculous here. The Bison are winning 7 titles in a row now. At what point is something going to happen here? And NDSU to the FBS is a whole different segment, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, just for a wide number of reasons. I don't think the Bison are going anywhere anytime soon, but I just think, from the FCS as a whole, I think a James Madison win. No one's cheering. No one from a neutral perspective is cheering for JMU. Don't get me wrong there, but I think just for the FCS as a whole, the subdivision could use Duke's win here, just for the health of the subdivision.
Sam, talk about the game in terms of a specific matchup or two that you think are going to be key to the way this thing goes. I mean, we always know about turnovers and all that kind of thing, but when you look at personnel, players on the field, styles of play, what these teams like to do, what are the things you're keying in on to look for tomorrow?
Yeah, the easy answer for that would be NDSU's offensive line versus JMU's defensive line. But I think that's going to be, for the most part, a stalemate. I think NDSU will get theirs. I think JMU will get theirs, get some sacks here or there and stuff like that. The one thing I'm curious about is how NDSU decides to guard Brandon Polk in the slot. He's a guy that, 5'9", blazing speed. You can't guard him in the slot with a safety or an outside linebacker, so it'll be interesting to see which cornerback they slide in to guard Brandon Polk. And on the flip side, Rashad Robinson is an outstanding cornerback for James Madison, but I don't know if he can match up one-on-one with Christian Watson all game long. And we saw what Watson did against Montana State, basically 2 plays in a row. He 70-yard touchdown catch, 75-yard touchdown run. And, I mean, Christian Watson, excuse me, the Fargo Forum had a story come out, and NDSU has these GPS tracking things on some of their players for injury purposes. And the fastest Christian Watson has run this year on a football field is 23 miles an hour.
Wow.
23 miles an hour. Christian Watson, 6'3" wide receiver, has topped out in shoulder pads and helmets, 23 miles an hour. So he's a matchup nightmare. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how James Madison decides to defend a dude like Christian Watson.
Well, Sam, we certainly appreciate it, not just now, but all season long. It's been fun to be with you and do another year here. Sam Herder from Hero Sports joining us. Go follow him at Sam Herder FCS on Twitter. Where else can people read your stuff? Obviously at herosports.com.
Yep, herosports.com, at Sam Herder FCS. Our main account is at Hero Sports FCS, and also our Facebook page. If you just type in Hero Sports, our Facebook page will pop up for you, and you can give us a like, and all of our articles will be on there as well.
Do a great job covering this thing. Enjoy the game tomorrow again, 10 a.m., ABC television nationally, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time for kickoff of this one. Sam, we certainly appreciate it. Have a good one, and hopefully it's going to be a great game tomorrow. Looks like it could be.
I think it will be. All right, thanks, guys.
You bet. Thank you, Sam. Sam Herder. At Sam Herder FCS, writes for Hero Sports, does a great job. Coulter, just briefly before we get out, I want to talk about this game with you because you and I were talking in the break about this a little bit, and I have sort of had kind of a comeback on NDSU a little bit. They were so impressive about when they played Montana State each of the last two seasons, and it's easy to compare those two games and go, well, Montana State really didn't, quote, close the gap. But also, it's just about the game that you play. Look, nobody's lying to themselves about North Dakota State and James Madison being out in front of everybody else, but that gap varies week to week, and especially in a tournament setting. I mean, they won 9-6 against Illinois State a week prior. They didn't play their best, or 9-3, excuse me, you're right, David. 9-3, won by 6 points. Didn't score a touchdown and didn't play their best game. And I guess that's the thing is, like, they have the best offensive line in the country. I get that. They are the best team in the country. But also, in any given week, if they don't play their best, and they have had moments where they haven't played their best, they are susceptible. And then when they don't play their best, they come back and they slam the door shut, which is what Montana State got in the semifinal. But I contend that if Montana State plays them a week earlier and they play the game that they played against Illinois State in the quarterfinal, Montana State has a very real shot at winning that football game. And so it's all about kind of how you catch them. And even though the ball is in their court because it's up to them and how they play, I don't know. I think I'm not saying there isn't a gap and that it isn't significant, but I also am saying it's not absolute. It's not totally overcomable. And James Madison tomorrow, I think, has a very real look, like Sam said, in that spot.
I think that Sam's notion that it is necessary for the FCS for this team, for James Madison to win, for it would be better for the state of the FCS as a whole if James Madison won.
Mm-hmm.
Sam said, though, you guys both said you think it's going to be a great game. I don't. I think North Dakota State's going to roll. And I think it's just because of the familiarity of it. I think it's just because it's just predestined. And I just think that when it comes down to it, North Dakota State, they're just going to figure out a way to win by 2 scores. They're just going to knock you off the ball over and over again.
Only you would invoke predestination as it comes to a national championship football game, Coulter. How in the world could you do something like that?
That was your Burn Street Bistro Burn of the Week.
Just fate. Don't even try. It's going to happen. You know what's going to happen? Brunch at the Burn Street Bistro. That's what I love. We'll see about it. I said, by the way, I want to correct myself. Officially, North Dakota State is back as a favorite. 1-point favorite. Quick break, come back. Hey, how about a 2-minute mashup? We love finishing the week with these things, and David is pumped up about this one. We'll listen to it with all of you right after this.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump. Ooh, pump it up.
Thirsty? Stop by your local Town Pump. Pepsi and Mountain Dew 1 liters are on sale. Buy 2 and get 1 free. Frappuccino 13.7 ounce, 2 for $5. Easy, convenient, and right down the road from you. Town Pump.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters. And you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at SelwayArmory.com.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
Everybody knows that high school sports generate suspense, excitement, and drama.
They also generate higher grade point averages, stronger work habits, and greater self-esteem.
Everybody knows that high school sports give us more value for our entertainment dollar.
They also give us leaders committed to strengthening communities right here in Montana. The true value of playing sports in school can't be measured in wins and losses or dollars and cents. Studies show that participation in sports, along with other extracurricular activities, is one of the best ways to teach leadership, cooperation, accountability, and other invaluable life skills. Don't just stand on the sidelines. Encourage the young people you know to get in the game. When you do, you'll be helping them get ahead in life. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education. This message presented by the Montana High School Association and the Montana Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Welcome to today's lottery drawing. And today's winning numbers are not yours, not yours, and another number that's not yours. And the final number is not yours.
When it comes to having money, don't rely on luck. Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering it. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Welcome back. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Outstanding to be with you. If you missed anything in the show, check it out on the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out Tutel Nuanez. It's there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. Appreciate all of them for bringing that to us. We love to have a little fun at the end of the week. It's a 2-minute mashup. What happened this week? You're going to find out in the next 2 minutes right now.
What are we doing? Oh, radio.
Hello, Montana.
Until this latest football breakthrough, the best team in the state of Montana, collegiately, was the University of Montana men's basketball team, and there's no question. And they still remain atop that post.
Is there one more FBS bowl game?
Really, really impressive run.
We are going to release the first of a 10-part podcast series called Grizz Greats, The Coaching Tree.
Syed Pridgett is a first-team All-League talent. He's an amazing player. He's a great scorer. He's one cool customer, but he's not like a verbal guy.
And it's been Jared Samuelson coming through here early.
I knew that they were just going to be a work in progress before they learned how to play with each other.
Trey Flowers joining us, cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks.
The mindset changed last week coming into the playoffs. It was a new season. Everything before didn't matter.
What's going well for Seattle when Seattle's playing good defense?
It's just everybody flying to the ball, everybody doing their job, and knowing what we can do. Me personally, I got to clean up some penalties, and I think it would have been a perfect game by the defense as a whole. The Legion of Boom changed the NFL forever, and they definitely changed the Seahawks. So we have an image and we have a standard to uphold.
How much confidence do you take into this game, knowing that, hey, you guys have gotten it done away from CenturyLink all season?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's our motto. We've done it before, and why not do it again? Why not keep going and and then take us to the Super Bowl.
The league remains a mystery. Who's going to rise up?
No kid wants to be my pen pal. It's beautiful.
There's so many things to look at here.
I had to get up to go to the bathroom, and I was upset.
It's always a slippery slope. You got to maintain it.
We are hot and heavy.
Who was going to take control of this team?
Tomorrow on the show, very excited, Greg Bell covers the Seattle Seahawks for the Tacoma News-Tribune. Nobody better.
I got no feeling in the press box that the Eagles were going to win the game, even when Wentz was in the game.
You know, I love the geography side of this.
Place they haven't won since 1999, so I can't say it's a good play.
This right here is the best football weekend of the year.
Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Matt Hasselbeck, Brett Favre will give you a great game.
But he only rushed for about 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns in his career.
Do I have that right?
Whose fault is that?
I want a little picture of your world, okay? You're a very private person.
Or you could just type out every word, punctuate correctly, not abbreviate anything, and look like the smartest person that you know.
It's very hard.
Back in the good old days.
Okay.
I wish I was this age in Missoula, Montana in like 1979.
This is very interesting.
You will certainly perish.
When's it too late to stop saying happy 2020?
Excellent work, as always, by David Graff on the 2-minute mashup. How about that? Well, that was pretty good.
It's the first time in the history. First of all, that was very good. Very good work, David. First time in the history of the show I've ever felt like I got gypped on a topic. We are going to talk about Mike Leach to Mississippi State more next week. Okay. I got to re-emphasize. Everybody loves this guy, and just don't
Coulter.
Don't be blinded.
Don't end salty.
Great
Have
week.
a great weekend, man. It's going to be a blast. We'll see you on Monday. Let's rehash all that happened and get ready for the FBS Natty later.
Now, the Montana Club's happy hour features BOGO beverages. Our expertly mixed cocktails, microbrews, domestics, and wine are buy one, get one free 7 days a week from 3 to 5:30. Stop in on Friday for Montini night. Sip on a top shelf martini for only $6, 5:30 to close. When you've worked hard all day and are ready to relax, the Montana Club has got you covered with BOGO happy hour 7 days a week, 3 to 5:30 on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.